He is a sick boy and should be treated before he grows up into a communist.
No, Lady, you are wrong. You are all wrong. He's just different, that's all. And it's not his fault, it's theirs.
Sidney knows what is best.
No, he does not know.
Sidney and me are good, upstanding, Bible-believing Christians. And we have searched our Bible from cover to cover to find an excuse for his behavior. And there is none. In the eyes of God, he does not belong.
And God is wrong. God made him, didn't he? If God doesn't accept him, then I don't accept God then.
Now you listen here, young lady. I will not permit you to speak of our Lord in that way. And I will not stay here and listen to it.
He's not my God. I don't want him. I hate him, and I hate Sidney too.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Lay a Kick, a Coen Brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel, Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeakquel. There's so many new ways to revisit Sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
We spent the whole entire night together until the sun crept up over the edge of the earth, turning the sky the reddest red you ever saw. This sentence can really be broken down into just a few parts. The subject is we, referring to the speaker and, in this case, a notable acting legend. The action is spent, and the thing we spent was the whole entire night, and we spent it together. The words until the sun crept up over the edge of the earth, till when the night ended. In that part, the sun is the subject and crept up is the action. The words over the edge of the earth till where the sun moved. The words turning the sky the reddest red you ever saw tell what happened at the same time as the sun was creeping up. In that part, the sun is the only one doing the turning. Turning is the action, the sky is the thing being turned, and the reddest sky is how the sky looked. The words you ever saw describe the color and mean that it was very red, in this case befitting a 1960s rural Texas sky. The sentence happens to be a memorable one from this week's movie in our season featuring movies that have titles that are complete sentences. And greetings, Starfighters, I'm Jon, joined as always by my brother Dan. And on this episode, we're talking about Robert Altman's 1982 adaptation of the film Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. Dan, have you ever been to a Five and Dime?
Probably. I definitely have been to, so in the film versions, it's a Woolworth's Five and Dime. We have definitely been to a Woolworth's, as once upon a time, as we were young children in Union County, New Jersey, there was a Woolworth's in Westfield. In downtown Westfield, New Jersey. Not,
I would say, to the scale of this particular Woolworths.
No, it was larger. This is like and this, I assume it's the same family. I assume it's not just a coincidence that it's two totally separate things, but and so I guess, yes, I have been to a Five and Dime store. To think of other ones, as we were growing up in Cranford, New Jersey, Variety Bin would probably qualify as a Five and Dime.
Wow, I forgot about Variety Bin.
That's where, you'd get your Garbage Pail Kids and your slap bracelets.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and while we're talking about Woolworths, whenever I hear Woolworths or think about Woolworths, the Ween song Freedom of 76 comes to mind with the line, Mannequin was filmed at Woolworths, referring to the movie Mannequin, filmed in Philadelphia at the Woolworths.
Yes.
Boys to Men still keeping up the beat? Is that the line? Anyway, it's so good. Freedom of 76, Ween.
Yeah, wow, shout out. Great song. And,
it's the greatest Philadelphia song ever. I'm sorry, Elton John. But
wow,
it's
Elton
true.
John, Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young.
I mean, thinking about Bruce Springsteen's contribution, I would say that one has a bit of an asterisk, but
let me just say, you lived in Philadelphia, so you have much more credibility on the topic than I do, who have never. I am not one to speak for what is the greatest.
You've been there plenty of
Philadelphia
times, though.
Yeah. But I would not consider myself Philadelphian, and nor at any point would I have. And like, you know, you were there. You were like, you lived all over that city.
I sure did.
Yeah.
Great city. Great city. Shout out to the entire city of Philadelphia.
I mean, also, I have to say, I recently listened to Streets of Philadelphia by Bruce Springsteen for the first time in a long time, as it, you know, it's kind of a heavy song and weighty song. And I was also, this is so funny. It brings me around to something else that I was like, how can I bring this up today? But it had me thinking about the film Philadelphia, and thinking about
the song was the film Philadelphia,
right?
Okay,
well, which Streets of Philadelphia was from, and Neil Young also has a lovely song called Philadelphia on the soundtrack for the film Philadelphia, and it had me thinking of a couple of things. It had me thinking of so one aspect is just how, you know, like we look back now and we're like, okay, in 2025, would we be having, you know, Tom Hanks play the role of the, you know, gay HIV positive lawyer? And regardless, and this ties in, I want to asterisk it because want to come back to it. That's it. But if you look at it and you say like, well, damn, like now, no, but 30 plus years ago,
right,
it was just to have this character have this representation and this kind of sympathetic, this portrayal that didn't reduce the character to stereotypes. And thinking about, and it's a powerful movie. I saw it in the theater, and I want to say the last time I watched it was maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago. Showed it in a class at when I was teaching in a different place, and it you know, really impactful. And you know, regardless of what our sensibilities are now, especially in terms of casting, Tom Hanks did a magnificent job. And I also thought about Denzel Washington being regularly superb, and of course then going and listening to your discussion on the Rediscovered Movies podcast, talking about virtuosity.
So this episode is coming out long after that will have come out.
Yes.
But as we're recording this, that's when that episode came out. Yes,
you can still listen to it.
You can still listen to it, but I feel like, but it's relevant. It's very present for us now. But we recorded that a lot. I think it was over the summer. We recorded that, and I have been waiting to be able to talk about it publicly until it has been released. And I'm so happy I can now, because virtuosity slaps and I love it. And it is so much fun. And I'm sorry to do this, but before we started recording, and I know that by the time this comes out, hopefully this will be a far distant memory for so many people, but during the whole craze of 6.7, all I could think about was Sid 6.7. And I just really wanted to tell everybody, it's just like, you know who the perfect person to represent this fad is Russell Crowe in 95.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyway, but you were talking about Philadelphia.
Well, I was, but it also brought me to that because I was listening to this is all, you know, within the same week, and just thinking about, you know, the careers, and thinking about like, wow, the story, you know, you share about allegedly Denzel Washington saying yes to virtuosity because of a young John David Washington, right? Saying like, "Come on, Dad, you got to do something fun." Because also thinking that it's like Malcolm X, Philadelphia,
right?
The Pelican Brief, which is like, you know, maybe it's a step in the right movie. It's a step in the right direction, but it's not virtuosity. So
it's not an action movie that takes place in virtual reality.
No, and it was interesting. There were some points and just some connections in that, you know, you discussed in terms of like other films in Denzel Washington's career, including The Pelican Brief.
Oh yeah,
but
right, yeah,
but yeah. So Philadelphia, a wonderful city, and multiple wonderful songs written inspired by the city. What's your favorite? Let us know. ruinedchildhoodspod at gmail.com. Totally irrelevant to today's discussion.
Yeah, what's the best Philadelphia song for you? And we'll extend that to what's your favorite, city song? Perhaps there's just a different city I mean, Philadelphia definitely has a larger representation than most other cities. I mean, LA and New York, likely have more, but Philly as being kind of one of those like next tier cities,
especially as being the city named in the title of the song.
Sure. Yeah.
So a lot of that, I think Philadelphia, like, yeah. And quality, the quality of the songs.
Yeah. And so, okay, because you were talking about the movie Philadelphia and how Tom Hanks, had he been asked to do this now, if regardless of age and everything, he does say that, like, if it were being made now, I would have never taken that role. It wouldn't have been appropriate. And I feel like the same conversation could be had, and the question could have been asked of Karen Black for our movie of the week.
Right. And indeed, we need to come back to that because much context is necessary. And
sure, I
sought out some additional perspective.
Good.
And can, at least share the perspectives of I don't know.
And before we even get into it, there's no way to talk about this movie without giving away certain things. So if you have not seen Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, we highly recommend you check it out. Or if you just want to listen to us talk about it and then decide, you know what, I would like to see what they're talking about, that's okay too. But just know that we'll be giving away some things that happen in it because there's no way to avoid it. It's the plot of it. But I will say, and I don't know if you want to get into it right away, but this is my first time watching the movie, and I didn't know anything about it. And so I was having a real like moment of, as things were going on, I was piecing things together in real time. And then I was really, I guess, surprised pleasantly by this 1982 movie and the way that it handled this subject matter that nowadays we talk about all the time, but in 1982 it certainly wasn't talked about and represented in this way. And I was surprised by Karen Black for being able to do this in a way that felt responsible.
And she was on record saying the toughest challenge of her career. And understandably so. Again, like we should definitely, for people who've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about. But like, let's be respectful here. And should we throw it to a synopsis here?
Yes, I will say at this point, if you decide I've got to just watch this first before listening to any more of it, if you have been enticed enough, now is your stopping point, and then you can come back to it right now. Okay, welcome back. It's so great to have you back. I hope that you enjoyed the movie.
Yes. And if you decided not to do that, there's no spoilers in the synopsis. So
okay. Go for it.
We kept it brief because we'll get into the finer points. We'll get into the details. So Here we go. It's 1975 and the Woolworths Five and Dime in McCarthy, Texas is the setting for a reunion of the disciples of James Dean on the 20th anniversary of the actor's 1955 death. Still working behind the counter 20 years later are Juanita, the shop's elderly Bible-thumping manager, fun-loving Sissy, and dreamy, distant Mona. Mona's, and by extension the shop's, claim to fame is that while filming Giant in nearby Marfa, Texas, James Dean slept with and impregnated her and that he is the father of her nearly 20-year-old son, Jimmy Dean. This story and many, many more are told as the disciples reunite and are forced to face some uncomfortable truths that have long remained buried in the past. As Mona, we have Sandy Dennis. As Sissy, we have Cher. Karen Black plays Joanne. Sudie Bond is Juanita. And then we have, I think her second big screen performance, Kathy Bates as Stella May. The wonderful Marta Heflin as Edna Louise. And,
yeah, she's great.
And Mark Patton as Joe, who, yeah.
Yes, ... We'll come back to that in a second.
But it's directed by Robert Altman in the period of his career where he was just basically he would direct a play on Broadway and then make a film version of it. And he did this with a few. Beyond Therapy is another one he did this with, and Streamers with Matthew Modine.
Yeah, and this was during a time in his career where he had a few movies that bombed.
This is coming on the heels of Popeye.
Popeye being one of them. That was a major money suck for the studios. So he was kind of in a moment of like trying to figure out, what do I do now? Because Hollywood kind of shoved him aside a little bit after a string of movies that just weren't financially successful. And as listeners to this podcast know, we are big fans of his Popeye. And you please listen to our Popeye episode and listen to our Giant episode. That's like the companion episodes to this. To this one right now.
Right.
And then, sorry, for our video viewers on YouTube and Spotify, you were holding something up. Tell us about that.
So this is a copy of the script. And interestingly enough, so I had a copy of the script, Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean by Ed Graczyk. So the play was published in 1976, and I don't believe it had a Broadway run until Altman did it in the early 80s, and it is the same exact cast. It is the same. It is Sandy Dennis, Cher, Karen Black. It is the same exact cast. It could almost be the same exact set, and something that, and I couldn't really find much about the writer. He had written a lot of like children's books.
How do you say his name?
I want to say like Graczyk or Graczyk.
Ed Graczyk.
I did not look it up
because whenever I see it, all I can think is Ed Kowalczyk, who is of course the lead singer from the band Live.
Right. Well, we alone are talking about this.
Featured in the movie Virtuosity.
Oh, Live, or is Ed Kowalczyk in it?
No,
He's in Fight Club.
They have a song.
Oh, nice.
In Virtuosity?
Is it like exclusive to?
Just give it up.
Oh, that's talking about feeling.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that one's off Mental Jewelry, if I remember correctly.
That is.
It's a beauty of gray. Beauty of Grey. That's it. Beauty of Grey. It's a beauty of gray.
Now I have to look it up.
All right. Okay. I need to get out of this spiral. So yeah, anyway, he didn't write a ton. This wasn't necessarily well received. Most of his plays were like off Broadway,
Sorry, Dan.
Broadway.
It's called White Discussion is the name of the song.
Oh, White Discussion. Oh, shoot. Oh, damn.
Anyway,
I went off into a whole other. Yeah. Okay. I think that one's also on
writer of the play.
Anyway,
who isn't Ed Kowalczyk.
They're not. No, there's no connection. Except
for very Polish names.
Although actually Ed Kowalczyk is from Pennsylvania, as is Ed Graczyk, is also from Pennsylvania. He also did live in Texas. He lived in Midland, Texas.
Hold on, Dan. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge something. Doesn't it feel kind of refreshing when you know that you're having a truly original conversation that's never happened before? Isn't there a little bit of magic to that, to know like there's not going to be a single other podcast that's talking about Come Back to the 5 Minute I'm Jimmy Dean that brings up the band live. No one's ever talked about the writer of the play and Ed Kowalczyk from the band live.
We alone.
We alone. That's
We alone love you, Ed Grashik, who's originally from Ohio. But yeah, so it's really interesting. But like, I was really trying to look at, so this is what he says about the influences of the play is that Jimmy Dean can only be described as the result of my own observations and frustrations with progress that ignores a past, the lack of personalization and pride, and the recurring need of people to build facades to conceal the truths of their lives. It is the facade that makes abnormal people seem normal and the sad people seem happy. A personal observation which I feel makes the people I write about colorful, theatrical, but most of all, honest.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, so it's really hard to say if he just kind of like, if he intended to do something kind of new and progressive and revolutionary, if he just kind of like stumbled into it, and if Altman, because Altman was a filmmaker who I think kind of like saw truths in people, and his films were, Nashville. Check out the Nashville episode.
Also with Karen Black.
Yeah.
Our Nashville episode. Yeah, that's another.
But, in Nashville, it's kind of like he does that with so many people, and like Shortcuts is very similar, where just pulling the veil and seeing the frailty in people. So I'm sorry, you were gonna say something. I cut you off there. No.
But I don't know.
Yeah. So it's hard to say, but we should talk a little bit about like what happens in over the course of the film and the play.
Sure.
And kind of also,
so this is
go ahead.
Go. I was gonna say this takes place on the date, the 20th anniversary of. Is it the 20th anniversary of James Dean's death?
Yeah, at least September 30th.
Yeah,
1955.
And so everybody's kind of convening at the Five and Dime, who are in this group. They call themselves, the Disciples. And there is a mysterious traveler in a yellow sports car who rolls up, and it's this woman who's very elegant and doesn't seem to quite fit into this rural, middle of nowhere Texas Five and Dime,
right?
But is kind of lingering around and looking around. And the movie, as the play also does, it flops between decades. And the way that it's done is through, the mirror in the Five and Dime kind of looks into the past of it, which is so well done and clever and very effective. And, of course, you're watching it and you're just like, well, I feel like I'm watching a play where a camera's moving around and appropriately so.
Or like where the lights will slowly fade up on somebody. Like when you're seeing it in the theater, it's like you're saying, oh, the lights fade up on them over, off, on this side of the stage. And in Altman, I think, to that point, really kind of reproduces that effect effectively.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm just going to say it. It is revealed that this person, Joanne, who nobody knows, and they can't quite put their finger on how they would know this person.
Right.
It comes to light that this is who they used to know as Joe. This lost and confused gay man who was part of their crew. He was a little younger, I believe, but was just part of their life there. And
he worked at the shop.
Worked at the shop and had a lot of difficulties on his own, or I should say on her own when, in the past. And the way that this is done is, first of all, really great that they didn't just, use the same actor and put them in a wig and just clothing and different makeup. And I feel like Karen Black is a really great choice because she has really interesting features, and it's not over the top so much where you're just like, oh, this is somebody who's clearly had a lot of work done or anything, but it's just like between the way that she just naturally looks and the way that she is presenting herself in that character are really thoughtfully done, and a lesser director would have done exactly what I was saying I'm glad they didn't do, and put a man in the role of both Joe and Joanne.
Right.
And it completely works. And the way that they deal with, Joe in the flashbacks is very careful and precise and well crafted. So,
and
job well done.
Right. And sorry, I have a few ideas buzzing because there's so many things that they address that are, it's like still topics that I feel like some people in society are like just getting used to, like, the idea of pronouns. And at one point they're kind of struggling and they're like he, and Joanne says, well, I was a he then, so that's okay. And kind of giving the like, well, it's okay to like, you can say that because that's then. And they kind of, dance around the idea of dead naming. Now, what I wonder about and what I think about, and, this was not a movie. It was successful in some circles. The Chicago, I think it won Best Feature at the Chicago Film Festival. The screenplay won an award at the Belgian International Film Festival. So, but then it got like mixed reviews. There were some people who were like, it's Altman's best since Nashville, which I don't know that was necessarily high praise in that moment of time. But, but I think about it, and I think about like how we're watching it now it is 2026 from an you and I are both cisgendered heterosexual males, but we are also people who are like we know people. There are people in our lives who identify across the spectrum, and
absolutely
and on top of that, like, we're also well informed. I don't want to say just well read, because you could be well read and not well informed, but in terms of learning, I feel like we both have that curiosity about things that we don't necessarily understand. And we say, like, I want to understand this as best as I can. And fiction, a lot of times, is a really great, when done properly, is a great, pathway in. But just thinking about that, we're watching it from that perspective. What did audiences think, especially if they didn't know it? I mean, if they saw the play, they knew this is not different from the play. But I wonder what they would even grasp. I think that the play and the script does a really good job of representing what would have been real reactions. I mean, if any, and from the ugly to the tactlessly curious.
Right.
And there's a lot of there's a lot of things that we hear them say these things, and from today we're like, oh, that's wrong. But you think about the lack of understanding that they had about things. And I still, and I still, like, I was left with some questions about it. If I can point to one, if I may.
Sure.
And this is, I want to kind of get your take on this as well.
Okay.
But in terms of Joanne's, like, and this is, of course, this is coming from the 2026 perspective. I don't know that anybody who wasn't like part of this community at the time would have even thought of this. But they ask Joanne at one point, like, do you regret it? And her response is, I didn't write it down. I should just, I have the script in front of me.
You have the script right there.
Her response is something like, only when I think about it. And just thinking about some of the other things about that we learn about Joe in the flashbacks, where Joe says, I can't take any more crap from this town, where he says, and he's just he's clinging on. He's asking Mona to run away with him because
right.
It's like his last ditch effort at being what he sees and what his environment tells him is quote unquote normal. And what he's literally beaten for not being. The play does go a little bit more like into it. Goes into a little bit more, and I think makes it a little clearer of what happens between Joe and Mona. But when Joanne is asked about it, and I can't find it here, but she says, she says, like, only when I think about it, which made me wonder. And this is not like, I don't know, but was Joanne or was Joe a transgender woman or a gay man who had an easier time, who, because of what he was put through, because he talks about, like, well, she says, after my mother died, I took the money that she left and I thought, well, I'll just be the daughter she always wanted. And he talks about, how he's treated by the other, Lester T, who when the young Joanne, as pre-transition Joe, is dressed as one of the girls in this talent show at the school, dressed as one of the McGuire sisters that all the girls do, and we're like, I guess Lester T, either really thinks he's a girl or knows but is kind of into it. I don't know. We kind of never fully get resolution on that, but it made me wonder and say, is this, and I also thought about, because now, and they do ask about the process, and Joanne says it's a psychological, and then, doesn't want to talk about it. Understandable. That's, big. It's, if all you know about this is, Emilia Perez, please, broaden your horizons. It's not just they singing about penises and vaginas.
Yeah.
But it's a long psychological process with extensive therapy, at least now. But I wonder at that time, I feel like now that conclusion would have been reached, because now they really, gender affirming surgery is not something that you can just sign up for,
right,
and have. It's a long, it's a process of treatments and therapy, etc. Which it doesn't necessarily. I don't know that Joanne necessarily had that, and it made me wonder. And I didn't have the opportunity yet to really do this research, but made me wonder, what was that process then the play is set in 1975.
Right.
So what was that process then? I don't know. And what do you think? What do you what's your take?
Yeah. Well, without, asking the writer himself what he had in mind and intended, and this is a fictional character, so I think that we can, whatever we decide is the experience of the characters is
we don't know.
They would have experienced. We don't, right, because it's a fictional character. Yeah. But I will say that, that's, you pose some interesting points there. I process this as being somebody who is transgender, but it's an extremely complex situation, as are all. And I read this as being something that was conflicting, and especially because at the time, and I don't remember where, or if they even said where Joanne ended up geographically, but like, if it's, if she's in a place where it is more common and accepted. But what I was really struck by was the comfort that she had revisiting this place where she knew going into it, I'm going to be faced with a lot of questions, and I know that there's as you put it, Bible thumping woman that works there, and there's these friends who are less understanding, and Mona, who when Joanne was younger had a much closer relationship with, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Right.
But then there's also those friends like Sissy, and which is Cher's character, and then I don't remember Kathy Bates's character, but
Stella Louise.
Stella Louise, right? Yeah, but there are people who, they're not going to instantly
Stella May,
be able to Stella May, be able to. There was another Louise in there,
Edna Louise,
that's it. But they're not going to be able to just like flip a switch and be able to, instantly accept everything and understand everything, and so going into the situation and being open and vulnerable with these people, there's also a way of talking about it in a way that's going to resonate with them. So as she's answering their questions, there are ways of, I guess, approaching them maybe in the honest way that's 100% honest, and then also in an honest way that's maybe a little bit easier for them to, grasp without having to go too deep into all of those answers. But and going back to Cher and Kathy Bates, you just said the name, and I completely forget it already.
Yeah.
Stella May and Sissy, but they both don't say all of the right things, but they're not disgusted. They are not offended.
No, they're the tactlessly curious because they don't.
Right.
They don't. Yeah. It's like they don't know, but they. It's their way of it's their way of caring, and you get the sense that Joanne knows and expects that, and that also that that Joanne knew and expected she was going into a serious situation here, and that like what to anticipate, and of course other things that will come to it. Also, it makes me think of a lot about the idea of, and there's the idea of facades. There's the idea of the facade that memory allows us to present, the facade of makeup and clothes. Like Stella May is very dressed up, and she reminded me of like Vashti in Giant. It's kind of that like over the top gaudy like Texan, and she's definitely the relationship between her and Edna Louise, and Edna Louise kind of the mousy I think Altman wanted Shelley Duvall, but I don't know if this like conflicted. I don't know. I don't know when she shot this in relation to like, I'm like, wow, Shining and Popeye came out around the same time. Like,
I know
that woman does like, wow, we did not give her enough respect. But
no.
So she, but the Edna Louise, just because I don't know when else we'll talk about her. She's got, she's married. Role. She's got 6 kids. Stella May shits on her constantly. And I get the impression also that Edna Louise is really happy being who she is.
Oh, yeah. Poor Edna Louise. All she wants to do is wear her nice dress.
But she doesn't.
Then everybody leaves while she's getting changed. And
and then she's wearing it, and Stella May makes fun of her, and Sissy jumps in. But then she's also like, yeah, you know what? I'm more comfortable in the other thing. And like Joanne gets it. And
Right.
Edna Louise, right? Edna Louise, we do get the sense that Edna Louise is not that bright. Like, I don't think Edna Louise ever fully understands who Joanne is.
Oh, no. God, no.
No.
I think that she was changing while the whole reveal happened.
Right. But yeah, the rest of the time she's just kind of, yeah. But you also kind of get the impression
Unaware.
that, like, hey, you know what? She seems kind of cool with, like, you know, having 6 kids and being right. And I'm like, you know what? She put, like, at the end, she's like, hey, thanks everybody. And I'm like, man, everyone like just treated you like crap for no reason.
I know.
And then you've got there's the history there also, like with Juanita, of Juanita's
right
late husband Sidney, who she puts up on a pedestal, but as we learned, Sidney was sneaking booze and grabbing sissies behind. And that on the night that Joe, like Lester T and his boys took Joe out to the graveyard, and I mean, it sounds like Lester T raped him. They're like a little vague, but there's enough detail. But with like the whole town watching, as Joe describes it, and he says Sidney was there.
Right.
And then they show that Joe comes back after this happens and he's all beaten, and Mona and Sissy are trying to take care of him, and Juanita's like, get him out of here, people will see. So they really really show the ugly, but also in terms of the representation of Joanne at that time as a trans woman, as a character who's being played as a realistic, like she's a fictional character who's representing real experiences, and this is not the type of stereotypical, like harmful stereotypes that were presented, where it was transgender people were portrayed as being sick and violent, and it's like regardless of like whether what Joe would have Joanne regardless, the portrayal of the character is presented very respectfully. I was looking for other podcasts that talked about it, and the podcast Gay Film 101 did an episode on it where they talked about it, and at least, and neither of the hosts are transgender, but at least from the perspective of members of like closer to that community, they saw it as being respectful, especially, and they acknowledge that if you made the movie today, be a trans woman playing the role, and but considering when it was made, at least their opinion was that it was portrayed, that Joanne, the character, was portrayed respectfully, that Karen Black really got the nuance and like really kind of like gave the absolute best performance I think anyone could have in that. Anyone who does not anyone who does not identify on that level with that character could possibly do.
Yeah, 100%. And I like I said before, credit where credit is due. They handled it really tactfully, especially considering the 1982 of it all, representing the 1975 of it all.
Yeah. I mean, the early Reagan days representing the aftermath of the Nixon days. Yeah. Just to put it in that perspective. But anyway,
so we've danced around this a little bit, but since we're already 43 minutes into this, it bears noting that the experience that Mona had, where she, as you mentioned earlier, by the way, the mythology is that she was an extra in Giant during one of the crowd scenes when Elizabeth Taylor first gets to Riata and they're having a little like barbecue and everything. She's like, you can see me if there, but she's turned around there, so you can't see me. So, and then as Mona's story goes, she, gave James Dean a light for his cigarette, and then they saw each other later that day, and then they had this magnificent night together. He kissed her, I think, 13 times. She counted every single one, and she has this whole story, and then the town celebrated the birth of the child of James Dean.
Right.
And yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying? Am I remembering correctly that apparently this happened in the mansion, in the Riata mansion?
I couldn't tell if it was like, I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure that they indicated that the house wasn't like a real house or anything. There was the facade of the house
later.
But I believe that from what I remembered, they were like in like a bed of a pickup truck or something. Like it was something like that, because of the way that she was describing, looking at the stars.
Yeah.
But I don't remember exactly. But anyway,
yeah.
So as it is revealed, the truth is that because Mona went to Marfa, which is only 63 miles from where they are, with Joe, at the time known as Joe, Joanne remembers things as they really happened. And you can put two and two together as you're watching it, and as you're kind of seeing Mona really unravel more and more, you're just like, oh, that story is absolutely not the reality. Perhaps in her mind, that's how the reality had to be, because the reality is that she and Joe, conceived a child together.
Yep.
And
And
it is described in the movie that Joe bears a somewhat of a resemblance to James Dean, so perhaps their offspring could have looked like the offspring of Mona and the actual James Dean.
Well, also
the titular Jimmy Dean.
Well, and it's funny. There's so much. I was looking at this with so much complexity in that, like, of course they're gonna. What else do they have? They have nothing else. So of course, and how do you the most exciting thing that ever is going to happen is this movie being filmed nearby. So how do you make that excitement last? It's this. And just to bring up some other things that I read into with it, and this was even before the revelation that Joanne is the biological parent of Jimmy Dean, was that, and I kind of knew figured out right away who Joanne was, but didn't necessarily put that part together. But when they were talking about, when they're describing it to her, how Sydney put the billboards up and they put up all the signs, and I was like, so because Mona basically is promiscuous and has unprotected, not that protected sex was like a thing in 1955, but has sex with James Dean, just as a one night stand with James Dean, gets pregnant and is celebrated for it.
Right.
Whereas Joe, like at that time, where Joanne listens to this, and I was like, she's thinking about how much shame and how much she had to hide who she was, and had to, and it was kind of like how she and I'm not saying you shouldn't be ashamed for having sex with James Dean, not that happened, but I'm not shaming her, but I'm saying it's kind of like that irony of she did something that isn't that also a sin, but you're celebrating that, but meanwhile and he's like, he tried, sorry, I'm thinking of the flashbacks, and with Mark Patton, who we'll talk about him, but with Joanne thinking about how she kind of tried everything to make these people happy, but like, what could she couldn't have James Dean's baby. And then add to that, when you think back on that scene after, you're like, oh, and that's of course like her kid too.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
it's like, wow,
but
that
also,
just digs deeper.
Yeah, but also thinking about like doing some work for the fictional characters who we don't even see in the movie. But if you're going to kind of put this woman, Mona, on a bit of a pedestal, and also her child, her fatherless child, having the father be somebody who at this point would have died,
right?
It gets her out of the shameful part of getting like having a child out of wedlock or anything like that, and it being this colossal superstar actor, this legend even at the time in his one of his few movies. So it kind of gives her a pass, and so the way that the people close to her built this myth that she maybe at a certain point just started to believe, and I don't know, and 20 years later is still clinging on to. The way that Sandy Dennis plays this character is just so heartbreaking.
Oh wow.
And and I was just so taken by the performance, and this was a movie where when I put it on, I was just like, all right, we'll see what I've heard about this movie. I don't know anything about it. Okay, it's very different from what I'm used to seeing, just stylistically, and then to see how complex it is and the subject matter that it deals with during a time when I would have never expected there to be this type of thing handled with such grace.
Yeah.
By people who I wrote off. I mean, Karen Black was somebody who I never really thought too much about. I've seen her in things, but not in like major roles. At least the things I saw her in were in smaller roles.
I mean,
Nashville. She was an Easy Rider.
5 Easy Pieces.
5 Easy Pieces.
Oscar nomination there for that.
Sure. Yeah. But this one was a significantly larger role, and I didn't see it coming at all, to be honest.
No, I mean, we obviously we can't get to everything here.
Yeah.
Mona keeps referring to her son, Jimmy Dean, as being, intellectually disabled. I'm not going to use it in the terms that they use, but
sure. Yeah.
But then there's some argument to that, and Sissy kind of has it out. There's some slight implication that like something is that, basically Sissy sees more in Jimmy Dean than that. And I was wondering if Mona, because Mona is pretty awful to Joanne after the revelation.
Totally.
And it made me wonder if she always talked about, like, he was kind of like, well, why does she talk about him being, disabled? And like, is he really, we never see him.
Right. Which I like that.
Right. He steals Joanne's
For a
Porsche.
while, I was like, when are we going to see Jimmy Dean? And then at a certain point, I was like, at this point, I don't want to see Jimmy Dean.
Right. Exactly. No.
He steals Joanne's car.
So I don't know. What's your take on all that? What do you think? Like, what was it just like Mona's?
Mona, she's got a lot going on. She's a complicated lady, and she has issues to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And she ain't going to deal with them. I think that we can all agree on that.
No.
I think that she's also resentful of Jimmy Dean for his existence. And, he in the deep recesses of her soul, she knows that he is living this lie that he is unaware of. And it's probably easy to kind of write off somebody that you're never going to be honest with in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just so beyond complicated. And I hope that nobody in real life ever has a situation like poor Jimmy Dean. That's really rough.
I mean, you hope not, but you look at it and you're like, you know what? I'm sure there's a few people, there's a few out there. Sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too big of a world for there to not be. I mean, not that specific situation, but I'm sure something like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, is there anything like we haven't really talked about Sissy, but
yeah, Cher is so great in this.
Yeah.
I love her. The whole McGuire sisters thing is a lot of fun.
Cher is she's just such a magnetic presence.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, let's see, what year was Mask?
85.
85. So I feel like this really set her up to, be this incredible actor in that. Moonstruck. I mean, just to think of the things
that's a 5-year trajectory there from this to Moonstruck.
Yeah. And just to see. Yeah. And clearly she had an entire life and career before this. As, Colossal Superstar. It's funny that it's this much later that she's just becoming this, coming into her own as this amazing actress. And I wish we would have. We saw so many great things that she did as an actor, and it's like, but it's still not enough.
Right.
I still could have used a lot more.
Yeah, you feel like if she had done a little, she would go back and forth with music and.
Yeah, and I know that
I feel like a lot of the acting she did was. It was more just to
music,
be like,
kind of like burlesque and stuff like that.
Like Mamma Mia was just kind of bring the Cher to just basically to be Cher. Right.
Yeah.
But she's a great actress. She's great as Sissy. Right. So much I mean, yes, because Sissy's got her own shit going on. I mean, just to throw it out there, Sissy ends up married to Lester T., the guy who severely beat, possibly raped Joanne back. Back in the day. And so,
but small town, and unfortunately, those types of things really happen.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And
but people,
if this movie, I guess it could have the opportunity to have this movie be done and not to just segue on to what would you do to bring this kind of thing back. But I would imagine that if there was a way to have it's 1975, it's the reunion, and then kind of focusing on a different person each time and the difficulties that they're going through that are, brought on by the traumas from their past, you could do something like that. And you could have a movie where, Joanne's not even the focus of it. You don't even know what Joanne's story is. And the focus of it could easily be on, Edna Louise.
I mean, Stella May, her husband is an oil tycoon. But
we don't get enough of Stella May, and she's so good.
She just has a little kind of breakdown at the end when she's like, "I'm happy," and just some classic Kathy Bates. But also just to kind of, and of course, again, remember this is coming from the male perspective here.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, in terms of the idea of women supporting each other rather than tearing each other down, I think this actually it speaks to that. And it shows that, like, you know what? It hurts to be honest and to let the facade down. But like when people are here and they care for you, you know, they care for you, and you can look past the, you know, the jabs and things like that. And that, like, you know, when people are there for each other, like we really are stronger. Then, and especially like, you know, for women who are, you know, like Kathy Bates isn't she's not the oil tycoon. She's the wife of the oil tycoon. Like, right. And so it's like, what is that life like? Like there's so much there. And I think this movie does, and the play does, like, you know, rather, you know, I think good job addressing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll also just kind of add on to what you're saying is like, it's refreshing to see a movie where people react and respond to each other in realistic ways. And when even though it, you know, yes, women lifting each other up to a certain extent, because that's more likely the reality is that, you know, it's not always going to be the sisters are doing it for themselves.
Right.
You know,
right.
We've got each other till the bitter end, first wives club kind of thing. But,
right.
You know, so to see something where it's like honest and everyone's flawed and, you know, they're still talking about coming back another time to meet up after like all this happens.
Oh, and it's
great.
And I mean, like over the ending credits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't shut it off because it's so like,
I didn't shut it off.
It's
I know.
Because you just see the shop and I'm like, and I'm asking myself, I'm like, are we supposed to accept that this is the shop in 1982, like when the movie is coming out? I'm like, is it just like 7 years later? Like it takes that amount of time, and the shop is just, it's a relic, it's a ruin.
Yeah, I mean, for that, the way that I was kind of processing that was more from the sense of like, does this place really even exist when they're not there? You know, we don't see any new characters. We think we're seeing a new character at first, but no, we're not seeing a new character. It's these people who have just been there all along or are coming back for the first time in a long time. They're all out of any beverage except for Orange Crush.
Right.
So, you know, it's like
this
is the end. This is the dregs of what's left of this place. And as soon as they're not there, it's not like someone else picks up the lease and turns it into something else. It is just in shambles. And yeah, really, really moving. And it's kind of like this movie didn't have to do that, but it went for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Altman.
And that's Altman for you. Well, anyway, so I shared an idea, a concept for something that could be done with this later, which would be, you know, kind of having a different ones that all focus on different characters rather than trying to cram in everybody's story all at once. But
like kind of the same perspective, like it's all kind of like whatever, like leading up to this, but
sure.
It focuses on. So it's kind of like, all right, this installment is what Stella May's got going on.
Well, it could also be each character's perspective from the 2 hours leading up to meeting up at the Five and Dime, you know?
Right.
One could still focus on Joanne, but have it be the drive to, you know, this small dusty town and encountering people along the way, or maybe making a phone call to somebody and being like, I don't know if I can do this, and, you know, kind of going through that experience. But really shining a light on each character for an appropriate amount of time, rather than like, okay, who did we not get to? All right, now you do your thing where you show us your trauma.
Yeah.
So, space it out.
No, that's great. And that's kind of like, so, I mean, that really, so, I just looked into it just to see like what type of revivals of the play there were. There really haven't been, but there was a musical that premiered last year. It was TheaterWorks did it, and an artist. Her name is Shakina, who's a trans woman who wrote the songs for this musical adaptation and played Joanne. And from what I was reading in the reviews, it actually sounds like this musical adaptation might have like kind of found what there is to like bring this back.
Really?
Which
cool.
I think
I like
it's,
that.
I feel like it's worth, so I think it's worth bringing back, especially because it's something that people might not have even understood at the time. But what I was thinking about, and I'm glad that this exists, is because I was like, all right, you got to like bring it back, but it's got to be revised by a trans woman needs to have a part in writing this. We need to have like that type of accuracy. Like, as a society, we're better. Like, we know things. So, I'm really glad to see that this adaptation exists, this musical adaptation by TheaterWorks, and that's really like there's nothing really else that I can think of doing with this other than again reviving it on stage, doing a Broadway revival, and like what you said, the other thing I was thinking about was I was like, you know what? There's other stories about these women,
right? And
what's going on with this. Sissy has this whole other thing going on. What's going on with that? And learning more about their lives. So pretty much what you said. But maybe not necessarily focused on this, this 1975 reunion, but just kind of catching up with them, checking in on them, seeing what their paths, what were they doing 5 years before this, with Edna Louise, what does her husband even do other than get her pregnant?
I was gonna say, we know what he does.
So that's it. That's it. And we think people should check this out.
Totally. Yeah. Big thumbs up for that, for sure. But if you have an idea of how you would come back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean, send us an email, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com, and go to Ruin Childhoods Pod for lots of cool stuff, merch, information about our, previous seasons and everything. And we like to know what y'all think of it. So, rate and review the show, leave us comments on Spotify and wherever else you want to. And YouTube, we always appreciate that.
We've got our own little online Five and Dime.
Oh, we do. And we sell weird merch with Jesse Plemons on it and stuff. I don't think that the Five and Dime, the Woolworths, had that.
No, they didn't. I mean, Jesse Plemons was not around.
No, he certainly wasn't.
But if the Woolworths were to come back, perhaps they would carry the Jesse Plemons line of clothing.
Okay, so can we just make a movie called "Come Back to the Ruined Childhoods Merch Store"? Jesse Plemons.
Green light. Green light. Now.
Oh, man. Well, Dan, why don't you tell everybody what we're going to be covering on our next episode of the show in our season of movies that have full sentences for titles?
And this full sentence will be asking the question, what's Eating Gilbert Grape? That question was first asked in 1993, directed by Lasse Hallström, starring Johnny Depp, Leonardo DiCaprio, Juliette Lewis, Darlene Cates, John C. Reilly, Crispin Glover, and Mary Steenburgen.
The Virgin Mary. What a stacked cast.
Oh, so good. Such a great cast. A really, really interesting movie from a really interesting time for movies.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, as you are speeding off in the stolen yellow Porsche that you nabbed from Joanne, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.